The Civil Rights Movement was a decades-long movement in the 1950s and 60s that pushed for African Americans to gain equal rights under unfair laws and legal systems in America. During the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans lived under Jim Crow laws, which were laws that allowed racial segregation in the South. In my research, I learned about the impact of activism and writing that was used by Amiri Baraka, James Baldwin, Gwendolyn Brooks, Nijake Shange, and the Last Poets. As an artist of color, I learned how important it is for me to speak out, how art has become a powerful method to communicate needs of a group of people because often artists of color aren't represented correctly by society. During the 50s and 60s, artists, specifically writers, wrote about the experiences they had living as Black men and women in America with the hope to educate, inform, and create change in their communities. One example of an artist that used writing to educate others was James Baldwin, who wrote a play that debuted on Broadway called Blues for Mr. Charlie. The play was inspired by the racially motivated murder of Emmett Till and depicted a white man's struggle for pride and power, but also showed a Black man's frustration and anger during the 50s and 60s.
Do you feel the Broadway stage is a good place to get across your views on the race relations question?
Well, yes. I don't want to get involved in a long discussion of the American theater, which is another story. But yes, I do. I'm very glad that we are opening on Broadway. I hope it shakes up a few people.
It was important for James Baldwin to write because back then it wasn't socially acceptable to see a Black man on Broadway due to laws of racial segregation. To see Baldwin artistically painting a struggle that was often ignored and not accepted by society. Looking back, he paved the way for young artists that want to pursue the arts and present their opinions and experiences through art. One example of a group that used writing to demand justice was the Last Poets. Jalal, Oboyodin, and Omar were a group of musicians and poets that came together to fight for the rights of the Black community. They used their music and politically charged lyrics to expose the truth African Americans experienced, such as police brutality, violence, and riots that they were exposed to. With their family members, friends, and neighbors becoming victims of police brutality, it was important to use the song to show the pain that the group faced, but also to warn the public of the near future. Because although Martin Luther King fought peacefully and patiently, Malcolm X didn't want to wait for peace and was willing to use any method he could to defend his community. Likewise, the group warned that if leaders, including the government, didn't listen to them, that essentially people would resort to using guns rather than their voices.
So my name is Ashley Shepard, and it's so funny. Grace is actually one of my past students. I'm a founding member of Writers Block, Inc., and so that's where I met Grace. And I was just so elated when she reached out and asked me to be a part of this awesome feature event. I actually did the Arm Your Voices event like last year, I think. So I'm a spoken word poet. I'm a New London native. And I write obviously about like social justice issues and just really trying to call our attention to the wrongs in the world and hope so we can make them right.
I'm Juanita Wilbur. She's a co-worker of mine at Writer's Block, and Adela Shepard, my cousin, all the way in the back, she got me in Writer's Block, and without her, I wouldn't have been in all of this social justice stuff. So, August 2014, Mike Brown was shot down, and that was the first example of police brutality that I witnessed. And with social media, everything's accessible, so his Black body hitting the ground as he died was all over Facebook, and it was being shared around as if this is a scene from the movie, that nobody's life was actually traumatized from something like that. So when I watched that and I watched how many people didn't care, it caused a rage in me that I didn't know how to express that anger, and the only way that I could get it out was through poetry. So,
hey, that's my sister. That's really my whole sister. My little sister. Hey.
Do a piece for you all called Liberty's Cry, and is written from the perspective of the Statue of Liberty. And she's kind of like looking at what's going on in the world, and she has this piece that I wrote. My country 'tis of the sweet land of liberty, for the 22 stories high, America. Look at me. Did you know I would rot? I've been weathered by elements outside my control. My skin, once bronze, now green, I erode like hate defiles justice in this country, America. Your liberty has rusted, once gifted as some figure of freedom, meant to represent what this nation should believe in, some beacon of hope. The huddled masses longing to breathe free, but now, oh how now my crown feels heavy. I'm being weighed down by broken chains at my feet. I'm reminded of how slaves were never really freed. Guess that's why black lives don't matter quite yet. No disrespect, America. But when you stand this tall, there's only so much that you'll fall for, and I bet you'd wish I fall for you. In true patriotic fashion, America, we are always the assassin who gets the praise. And here I remain. Your life like Liberts is built on this grave, 22 stories high, head hung low, listen closely, you'll hear my cries. I'm ashamed, mortified, as innocent lives pass me by. They're wading at sea. No, see, they're waving at me, desperate for our shores, hoping for our more. Disillusioned by this non-existent light in my torch, and I wish I could tell them the truth, my truth. That after 129 years of corroded promises, I don't know what I'm here for, so I'll tell them that I've seen too much loss of life, lack of liberty, how the pursuit of happiness does not always end on happy. How America...
So I sat down, I have problems sleeping, so I was actually up all night, and I didn't go to sleep until I wrote this, but I was listening to Strange Fruit by Nina Simone. One child struck down, criminal on the loose. Black bodies dropping limp every day. Strange juice flooding the USA. It's on TV, the nation cries, but there's closed eyes and the twisted lies. Privileged people think we're all clean and fresh, till the sudden sound of dropping flesh. Here is the juice, for the dogs to drink. Black lives are taken in just one blink.
Black women, and we were talking about why black women don't seek help for their mental illnesses. And we learned about that there are several things, such as poverty, and then we talked about stigmas within our own community. We talked about how mental health is viewed, and how black women aren't allowed to be mentally ill. We have too much to do to be mentally ill. And that hit me so hard. I was like, that's not true. Like the other book I read said that it affects everybody equally. So I did what Grace did in any given situation, and I wrote a poem about it. Where? Black girl is my sister, your mother or friend, but behind the mystery and magic of her melanated majesty, black girl knows that something is wrong. So to the black girl with all those scary feelings swirling around your head, I encourage you to look past the lies and stigma we've been fed. Get the help you deserve and don't be misled. Support your sisters and walk alongside of this long road ahead.
So, there was recently a shooting in Florida, and yeah, I wrote a poem about it. I am 17. 15 days ago, 17 people died. I wonder how long we will justify mass shootings with mental illness. Hear our presidents say this is evil, but make it feel like the inevitable. Arm Your Voice is a monthly poetry feature that happens at the Hygienic Park and Gallery in New London. It is an hour-long event that features spoken word poets followed by an open mic and is a platform for artists to share ideas, meet new people, and appreciate the art of spoken word. I was a featured poet on March 1st, 2018, and decided to bring local artists Adela Shepard, Juanita Wilbur, and Rachel Ellis with me. This feature relates to my project because back then, African American poets used writing and activism to create change in their communities, but even today, African American poets are doing similar things. Whether they're using writing to express and inform people on social and political events or give their perspective, art is an arising method to bring about change. While art and entertainment are part of what shapes our culture, the audience's reaction might not always be what we planned. However, the content, one's self-expression, and opinions cannot be taken from them. Today's art has power to empower, educate, and inform groups of people.